Or you can, we'll make it so that you kind of unmute yourself and just ask us that way as well. So whatever will work best. You're always welcome to put a question in the chat. We do have Miss Myers, our assistant principal here. Maybe you can give a wave, Miss Myers, so people can place you. And so she'll be monitoring that. We'll make sure we get to any of those questions as well. So just for those of you who are just joining us now, again, my name is Janelle Mellgren, and I'm principal for the School of Grammar. In case you haven't seen me on video or one way or the other. When you see me looking off to the side instead of at you, I'm just letting people in the waiting room. So I'm not trying to be rude to anyone who's joining us. So want to just give you do a quick review of the process that we're engaged in as we explore as we're in the process of looking at in-person learning. I want to begin with reassuring everyone that if any family either wants to keep their child in distance learning or prefers to move them to distance learning, that is always an option for the school year. So if and when we're able to make the move to in-person learning for those families who wish to have their students do in-person learning, distance learning will always continue to be an option. So I think we maybe created a little confusion there for some families, which I apologize for. So just wanted to clarify that. That's always an option available if that's what feels safest for your family this year. So we are kind of in about the middle of our ideation and information gathering phase for our putting this process in place to move to in-person. And so the survey that you completed was helpful. This week we worked on analyzing the data from that. We're taking additional questions and ideas that we're receiving from these meetings that we're hosting this week. We had one Monday and then this one today. And we'll be incorporating that data into a proposal that we will be putting forward that Ms. Myers and I will primarily work on that, and we'll be including all the necessary operations staff. So it'll incorporate your feedback from the information we get from our families. Our teachers have been highly involved in the process, giving us information and feedback, and a few of them have popped into these meetings as they've had time. We'll talk to our lunch coordinator, our busing, transportation, all the logistics that are required. So we'll be collecting feedback from them. Then we'll be putting kind of a proposal together to present to the board along with a recommendation. And our goal is to do that in November. Though our numbers are such right now that we can't do in person currently, we do want to make sure we're proactively planning and getting everything in place so that as soon as we're able and ready to do that, a lot of the back end work will be done so that we can make that transition more smooth and more quickly. So we'd rather work on the process now and have it ready to go when it's safe, if the school board approves it. So I can't ever guarantee what the school board will or won't do. They're our governing body, but we are working our way toward that. The goal will be to present them with a recommendation in November at their board meeting, which I believe is I always get my board meeting dates mixed up. I think it's the 10th or the 17th. If I'm remembering right. One's a workshop and one's a meeting. So we'll be presenting that to them then. So brief, just quick overview of the data that we received from the parent survey that many people filled out. Almost all families of students who are currently enrolled in hybrid for kindergarten filled out the survey. And about 50% of our families who have children enrolled in distance learning filled out the survey. So it gave us a good response rate. We were up in about the 70-some% response rate. 92 of families who responded whose children are in hybrid learning preferred to go to in-person learning. So that was really good information for us. That means that fewer than 5 families right now would choose to move their students to distance learning if we provided in-person learning. And the reason that's important is we have to monitor our numbers for distance learning classes so that our classes aren't too large, and we may need to shift teaching staff around to accommodate depending on how those numbers shift. So that's one reason why it's so good for us to get a feel for that. Overall trend of comments and questions fell into two categories, which are probably not surprising. One was health and safety, which is a great question to ask. And the other was logistics, what we would call logistics. So kind of, you know, the type of questions that are logical to ask and important to know about. Overall, there are a few basic questions that were asked. So I'm just gonna kind of go through, Ms. Myers and I will go through and answer those quickly right now, just to kind of get those answers out there. And then do feel free to put questions in chat and things like that if we aren't able to answer that or haven't answered it yet. So one of the big questions was what protocols might be in place if we move to an in-person model. The distance that our goal is between students and staff goes from 6 feet to 3 feet right now. That's guidance from our school nurse, from our consultant, and those kinds of things. We're kind of always checking in on that. We will likely be using many of the same disinfecting protocols and those kinds of things. Masks will still be required, partially just because we want to stay as safe as possible and keep everybody safe. And also we have to remember that even if kindergarten moves to in-person learning, other cohorts in our building who are in hybrid learning are not in person. Like, we're not all operating under the same parameters. So we have to make sure that we're keeping building-wide certain safety protocols in place so that we're protecting students, our older students as well. We would certainly get specifics to everybody ahead of time so that you'd kind of know what to expect and what it would look like. That is part of our information gathering process. So as we continue to move forward, that's a component of our plan that we'll be putting in place in consultation, again, with our school nurse, Department of Health, potentially if needed, and our consultant. So more specifics will come, but there will be heightened safety protocols, but there will probably be less distance required. And so there'll be a little more flexibility for us there, particularly in the classrooms and for lunchtime and things like that. Another question that came up was about lunchtime. What will that look like? The goal is going to be to keep them having lunch together as much as possible. The tricky part is we share the lunchroom with the whole rest of the school. And so it'll be an interesting challenge for us to figure out how that might work and look. And Ms. Myers and I have not had an opportunity to sit down and really work out those logistics, but we will. And again, that will be communicated ahead of time. And we'll be working with our lunchroom workers, we'll be working with our kindergarten teachers and making sure that we can do that. Recess will probably look basically the same. So that would stay similar. Busing, the safety protocols that have been communicated already regarding busing in terms of the distance that needs to be kept. Only families would be sitting together. I think we're at a 50% capacity on our buses. Would remain the same, again, because it's not just our kindergartners riding the bus. We have other students for whom we need to maintain those 50% capacity protocols. Right now, that survey data was helpful. It indicated which parents may want to take advantage of busing or not. And so that enables Ms. Connor, our transportation coordinator, to take a look at numbers. And we think we have bus capacity right now based on what we're seeing. So we're not worried about that, but we would definitely have to continue to just work out the final details on all of that. What might Fridays look like? Would they be coming into the building or staying at home? We don't know the answer to that yet, but it's a great question, and we will be exploring that a little more, again, likely with the teachers and other staff. We have to keep into account that we have childcare happening in the building Fridays and all those other things. So we'll definitely be getting more information to you, which I feel like I say a lot, so apologies on that. It's just, there's a lot of details. But it's all, we can definitely work those out. Will changes result in a change of teacher? Also a really great question. Likely, it could. We would do our best to communicate that in advance, but we just can't guarantee that given what we need to do with logistics and how we have to manage numbers and all of those kinds of things. And because distance families can request distance at any time, which we are glad for, but it does kind of drive a lot of how we need to make decisions, because we have to keep numbers manageable all across the board. So we would do our best to communicate that with you if there was going to be a change as soon as we could, because I know sometimes that might impact decisions that you make for your family, but just want to be transparent and say that it is a possibility. And then it was really nice to read a question that popped up a few times too about how will the staff be kept safe. So thank you for your care and concern for our staff. We always appreciate hearing that and feel that a lot, and the support from our community as well. So again, I think I kind of addressed this, but just those safety protocols, we are going to pay just as close of attention to our safety protocols. It just might be that we can reduce and relax some of them for the kindergarten area in particular. But we definitely won't be doing anything that would compromise staff safety. And that's an important reason why I see 3 kindergarten teachers on right now, why it's so important that they're part of the process as well, because we want them to feel safe. And not just our kindergarten teachers, but our EAs and TAs who might interact with our students and things as well. So there will be heightened safety protocols, certainly, and we'll make sure that we're all feeling good about them, we understand them, and that we can maintain them. So I don't know if any of our kindergarten teachers want to jump in and speak to any part of this process or anything. Ms. Gillitzer, raise your hand.
Sure. Yeah, I can. I just know in the last meeting, the parents just wanted to make sure that we felt really comfortable. And I just want to let everyone know that we've been involved in the process from the very beginning. We started to get it launched, and we've been working closely with admin and the other people involved in this process. So yes, we feel comfortable with it, and we have been making sure that as we make decisions and as this process has grown and evolved, that we have been a pivotal part in making the decisions. And we do feel very comfortable and confident with the plan as it's laid out currently.
All right, thank you, Ms. Gillitzer. I think, Ms. Myers, did we hit the high points as you remember them from the survey and the information? So we're happy to take, apologies, my phone is ringing, that's what that is. We're happy to take questions from you or ideas, anything that you might want us to consider or keep in mind, or if there's something we can answer for you. So again, feel free to utilize the chat, or you can unmute yourself and just ask a question as well. So great question. When might it start if the board approves in November? I don't know, which is a phrase I've practiced using a lot since about last March. It really depends on the case count numbers. So under our current decision-making model, we would have to get to a case count of 19 or lower for a little while. Mr. Albrecht wasn't able to join us today, but he was on Monday. And so I re-verified with him. We would want to see case numbers 19 or below for at least a couple of weeks, likely, to feel like we were remaining in consistently safe territory. Right now, at our latest official check, we were at 25.5. I hope those will go down. They could go up. So it really does depend on that. So likely it wouldn't be in November, but I don't know, you know. So I'm best case scenario, perhaps December, maybe a little bit after that as well. Oh, Great. Nope, Keith, that's a great question. I don't think I did say that at all. So if everyone can see that question, he's wondering what percentage of families who have their students enrolled in distance learning preferred to keep them there. Ms. Myers, correct me if I'm wrong. I believe that we were at about, I think there were only 2 families who indicated they might want to switch to in-person, or it could have been 0.
We were at 93% wish to continue at distance learning.
Yeah, thank you.
So it was 3 families.
Yeah. Also, they would be shifted to in-person if their current students want to stay distance. Yeah, that's a great question. Right, it's always possible that teachers will have to shift either way. We kind of started out our year with that conversation, which is very weird for us all because we are not used to that kind of scenario. That's very different and not really how we prefer to go. But it's one of the benefits of having limited class size limits in a typical year, because then we have a lot more say-so over that. So likely, because we have so many parents and families indicating right now that they really do want to stay with distance, that makes the volatility a little less likely, right? So it would be more likely right now that we would have to shift a teacher to distance rather than to in-person. Although right now we don't need to do that based on our numbers, but that's the likeliest scenario that the numbers are presenting us right at the moment. So again, our goal would be to be as transparent as possible and communicate that to you in a timely manner when we know, so that you can make decisions. Great questions.
I started typing this question and it got kind of long.
Yeah.
Our school question is, we have a kindergartner who could be in person and then a first and a third grader who might be on a at-home hybrid week.
Sure.
Is there still tell or anything before or after school where we could basically have one of us at home and the other person dropping off, picking up, and have a little bandwidth or margin there?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Siblings, right? Yes, tell, as far as we know, tell would continue to be available, so that would be an option. We are considering, if this process goes smoothly and well and we're able to make a shift in person, the same process that we're building for this, we would be able to utilize for grades, first grade, second grade, potentially third, and other grades. So it is possible that at some point in the year, we might look at shifting some of the other grades as well, which kind of alleviates some of that. However, it is true we aren't able to do it all at the same time. So I do know that will cause an interesting schedule situation for families, to be sure. So yeah, I hope that answers your question, John.
It is tell just after school, or is there, because there's some used to be breakfast before school, or?
Yeah, tell is just after school. If we do have any tier 1 workers, Ms. Myers, maybe you can speak to childcare, which is a slightly different during the day. Maybe you want to speak to that, Ms. Myers, what that is and what that might look like.
Sure. We have a childcare program here for if both parents are a tier 1 critical worker, then their children qualify to attend the childcare at our school. It is free. Basically, what we do is we provide a working space for your student. We make sure that they get into all their proper Zoom meetings. We monitor them doing their work. If we can help them, we can. They are not teachers that are in the classroom. They are adults that are here that can help and provide help with technology. If they understand the assignment, they can help with the assignments and stuff. They provide lunch and they provide recess for the students as well.
All right. Great question. I think Yvonne asked a question many of us have on our mind, which is, how likely do you think that this will really happen? My crystal ball broke last spring because I was using it way too much, but that's a great question, Yvonne. If I were going to make a guess, I'm going to be like a sportscaster. I do love to watch football. So they always, are asked who they think is going to win the game. And they put out like 3 caveats ahead of time. So just consider this my 3 caveats. I would think at some point in the year, we're going to be able to move to in-person. I'm optimistic that our numbers at some point are going to drop and remain consistently low enough. And we do want to do that. We are seeking to bring them back as long as we feel safe and good. I think the way that we approached hybrid this year has proven to us that our process has been relatively good. The students transitioned in fairly smoothly. And so we just want to make sure we kind of maintain a smoothness as much as possible, because we know our students are having to deal with so many transitions, and so are we, the adults, but we can absorb it a little more than kids can, especially our littlest. And so the smoother we can really make this, the better for their emotional and mental health as well. So that really is kind of an underlying part of the process. But I'm optimistic that we're going to be able to at some point. And we do want to. So I'm not going to throw a month out there because there's too many unknowns, but that's a fair question, certainly. Is this something the schools and most parents want? We have a small subgroup of parents who do want it, and there's enough of them that we do want to make it happen, because the teachers would like it to happen too. As Ms. Gillitzer said, it kind of originated. They kind of came to us and say, hey, can we really start looking at this? And so we were hearing from you, and the teachers were like, okay. So enough that if we can make it happen, certainly we will. Consistency for kindergarten. Yep, that's a great question. Yes, if they went back over 19 under the current model, then under our current model, we would have to, excuse me, I have to let someone in the meeting. We would need to go back to hybrid. And actually, Ms. Myers, can you make a note of that in our Google Doc that we have going for the planning? I think that's a good contingency that we need to back plan for, and that I don't think we have. So that's a great question. Would we look at adjusting that and adding that to our board recommendation? I don't know, but I think it's certainly worth considering. So we always get good ideas whenever we are able to connect. So we certainly appreciate that. Helps our planning. Okay. Any other questions or things that we can answer? Just want to kind of toss out too that I'm in close communication with our main school counselor for School of Grammar, Mr. McLean. And if we feel like there's things that we might be able to do from the social emotional perspective in terms of supporting those transitions in and out, I'm going to have him just start researching that a little bit to see maybe what some other schools have done or noticed, so that we can maybe plan and prepare. Most of our students came in a lot more resilient, at least from our perspective, than I was even anticipating, which is a good sign, but we don't want to just take that for granted. We want to make sure we're paying attention to that as well, as I know you see most of the time in the home, because you see them more than we do. So, all right. Well, we are happy to hang on for about 5 more minutes. That's when our scheduled time is. And then we do have to pop off to another meeting shortly thereafter, but we're happy to stay on and see if there are other questions. If you need to go and get on with your day, that's perfectly fine as well. Just wanted to say thank you again for your participation in this process. It's extremely helpful. Question, what feedback have you received regarding how in-person elementary has gone elsewhere in the metro? Most of what I've heard is that it's gone fairly well. What is interesting is those who started in person and who are going to have to make the shift. I'm interested in hearing how that goes for them. Since we started this way and are shifting a different way, I suspect that shift might be a little easier just by virtue of all the logistics that were involved on the front end for us. And there's still some, but it's less. So in general, the feedback has been pretty good. I know a teacher who teaches in Shakopee. She's a very good friend of mine. And so I pick her brain regularly along with a few other principals that I know. So no huge issues necessarily. So I'm going to be interested again to learn how, if they have to shift to a reduced model, how that goes for them, because I think we'll be able to learn some things from there. So in general, it seems like it's going fairly well for the students. Staffing is probably the tightest and the most interesting issue, just because, especially as case counts goes up, staffing is impacted potentially. And so that has been a little bit of a struggle, I think, more so than the learning. All right. Ms. Myers, anything else you want to toss in, or Ms. Mills, who's also on? Principals talk a lot, but that's not always, they don't always need to, so.
One thing that I could just throw out there too is kindergartners do always receive free breakfast. And so there is that time from 7:30 to 7:45, potentially, depending upon your last name, I believe is how it's broken up, Ms. Mellgren, to eat breakfast before school, so that extra time to drop off your youngest kiddos and then get home to your older students might kind of be built in, if that's something that you were thinking about.
Yeah, that's a good point too, Ms. Myers. We might want to add that to our document, because if other cohort students are eating breakfast, we might not have to look at adjusting how we approach that. So that, because we have the space, we just have to allocate it appropriately. So it's a good point. All right. Our goal is going to be able to make these recordings available so that those who couldn't attend, or if you just want to go back and check something, we should have those available via the website, I believe. Ms. Castro, if you're on, maybe you can let us know the plan for that.
I think maybe we'll just email out the links to all kindergarten families. It'll probably be a Google Drive link.
That makes sense. Probably not everyone wants to watch a meeting like this, but it's really relevant to kindergarten families right now. All right. Well, we'll hang on till 11:15, like I said, just in case any other questions come up. But other than that, I think that's what we have for you. So thank you again. Thanks for your perseverance in a lot of ways this school year. We are partnering with you in that. And I know we don't always know everything you're dealing with either, but we really do appreciate all that you are doing and have done, so that we can really work hard to make this as successful as possible for our students. So that is always the goal.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Good afternoon.
You too. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. All right.